Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson, broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. It's good to be here. It's May 24th, 2025, AMA time. Changing the format here in a bit, but I figure for old time's sake, it'd be nice to keep doing it the old way. Got a beautiful podcast studio, and actually, Google just announced Beam. So I think I'm going to put one of those Beam things there. I'm sure we can get a beautiful high definition picture from that. I guess you get a 3D model or something with people. Yeah, it's been over 10 years and I've been doing this off and on. I remember the Bitcoin Education Project, started that in 2013. I was doing work before then, but that was the first time I actually shot videos and started talking about cryptocurrencies publicly, which it's amazing when you think about it and how much the times have changed. AI is getting truly extraordinary, and computers are so fast now, and everything is enhanced. Nothing's real anymore. Every frame that gets transmitted goes through an enormous amount of processing and upgrading. Do the pretty girl effect on the faces. It's pretty cool when you think about it. But yeah, we're getting there little by little, and the protocols are getting better too. People are really starting to think around how will DeFi actually plug into TradFi? How will these two things come together? And what's required? Midnight is solving a massive part of the problem with privacy and selective disclosure, and there's a lot of work we got to do there. In fact, a ship that leaks from the top. I'll tell you guys a project that we're working on that's really cool. So we have this idea because we really want to create an accurate test of things. And there's this lovely company called Altera that gave me the idea. And the concept is, why don't you create a virtual city? And that virtual city has AI agents inside of it, and they take roles, and some are commercial roles and retail roles and criminal roles and law enforcement roles. And you just let that simulation of a city run. And then what you do is you introduce crypto into the city, and then you see what they do with it. So for example, let's say we build a private stablecoin. We can beta test the private stablecoin in the virtual city and make that the official currency and transaction medium. And then you have all the actors run, from the criminals to the regulators to the retail consumers and so forth. And you see all the transactions that go through and what happens with it. So that's going to be pretty cool to see what ends up happening there, because it's like a real life test. Because the thing is, like Hydra and things like Midgard and Midnight or Cardano, really with Midnight, the base layer of the system is these big fat aggregated proofs that eventually become recursive. Then when you go one step up in the stack, and you look at like, well, where does all the assembly of those things go? That's really your payment layer and your intents layer and your roll-up layer of the system. So they fit hand in glove. And if you do it, you can be infinitely scalable. So it would be a really cool exercise to run a virtual city. And then you can stop thinking of TPS, and you can start thinking your DeFi ecosystem as cities that you can run concurrently, concurrent cities processing or something like that. So how many cities, how many states, how many nation states can run concurrently comfortably in this, meaning that there's no disruption to the commerce inside the system. So I think it's kind of a better, more holistic idea to think about these things. And yeah, we'll see what happens with it. But overall, it's really cool to see all the cool new ideas that are floating around. There's the war between recursion and folding, and they're both pushing forward. The idea of partial transactions and having them kind of be impending and built in some sort of pending layer. We're talking about how to do this with Cardano, with nested transactions, but more abstractly, Reese is talking about this concept of a Cardano DeFi kernel, which is a really nifty idea that sits above the extended UTXO basement and helps people do these types of things. Overall, good though. All right. Is it feasible to introduce Ouroboros Privacy? Well, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time on Cardano before Ouroboros Omega. So for those of you who don't know about Crypsinus, it's an old protocol that we came up with probably 5 years ago or 6 years ago. It's hard to remember because there's always, lots of papers we publish. But basically, the idea is it adds privacy to the stake pool layer, and it allows you to have private stake pools and private staking. So we already sort of kind of moved this with adaptive security in Ouroboros Privacy, where you don't know ahead of time the leader schedule, so you don't know the DDoS, but the stake pools are private, or public, I should say. They're registered on chain. Crypsinus takes that to the next level. Given that there's been enormous advancements in consensus theory and zero knowledge, if we were to go down that road as an ecosystem, it would make a lot of sense to take that paper and update and modernize it, given the new lessons that we've learned. But it could certainly be part of the Ouroboros Omega agenda. But really, it depends on a variety of factors. So there's two things pulling against Crypsinus. One is that performance is going to take a big hit, and a lot of the optimizing functions we have about the network stack, relays, and these things, they don't work when you have total anonymity in the consensus set. The other thing that pulls against it is multi-resource consensus, because you have one privacy model for staking, but what if we introduce a proof of work function or a different kind of consensus inside the system? Well, only one part would be private and the other ones would not benefit from Crypsinus. So you have to look at Crypsinus from an optimization lens, from the modern zero knowledge technology lens, and also take a look at it from the lens of multi-resource consensus as well. But that's an interesting question. I haven't seen stuff like that for a long time. Sick office. Well, thank you. I have my Jean-Léon Jerome painting behind, and my skulls and various things I've collected throughout the years or have been gifts. Still building, still doing stuff, but it took quite a bit of time to get this where it needed to be. It's the home office. Hello, Charles. Korea is now suffering from rigged elections. I hope you can use Cardano to create a true world and right society. Oh, hang on a second here. Browser lost connection with your camera. Make sure you have the right camera set up. I think my camera just went dead. Ruh-roh. Let me... Well, we'll switch over to the integrated camera then, huh? Okay, there we go. Yeah. All right. So hopefully everybody can see me and hear me all right. Let me just check. So my computer decided to install a firmware update. It's a new computer and it decided to do that. Anyway, there we go. We're back. Alien abduction, all these things. The elections, I absolutely agree. I think there's a huge issue right now when you think about integrity of all institutions. People don't believe anything anymore. We have an audit report coming out, and people were criticizing the auditor, BDO, fifth largest auditor in the world, 166 countries and over 100,000 employees, tens of billions in revenue. Apparently, that's not credible. It's not people aren't doing their job. It's that people have become so desensitized to the notion of objective reality and truth that they have a skepticism about everything, and everything now is just in a personal radius of belief. So if you want to believe it's true, it's true. If you want to believe it's false, it's false. And they just stuck in their opinions and they can't move beyond that. So voting is a great example of that. So you have a system to collect the consent of society. And some people believe that for each nation state, it's credible or not credible. And usually it stems with, did they like the outcome? If their candidate got elected, it's the most credible election ever. If their candidate did not get elected, then it's no longer a credible election, and it has to be the whole system has to be brought down. The point of blockchain technology is an attempt to reintroduce objective reality in some way to people. It's its core contribution. It's why it's so valuable. How much would you pay to know that the things that you read and see and the information you're given is accurate? What tax would you pay on that? 2%, 3%, 5%? We do this a lot when you think about safety. So you buy food and you like to believe your food doesn't have lead in it. You like to believe your meat is not contaminated. You'd like to believe that what you eat is not poison. So there's the Food and Drug Administration. If it's credible, they're doing a good job, prevents bad stuff from happening. If it's not credible, well, then I guess you're going to die. I guess it's bad food. We're back to the old Middle Ages with the rotted pork with worms in it and stuff like that. But it's in every institution when you really think about it. Academic institutions, degrees. It's like, oh, well, this person went to institution X, Y, and Z. Well, does that mean something? If you're in the academic elite and the liberal elite, and if somebody went to Harvard, that's a Harvard person. If you are politically conservative and outside those circles, they're woke nonsense. That person's a bad person. Harvard doesn't make good people anymore. Harvard only makes woke monsters that are just lazy and never want to work. And all of those things are deranging society, because at the end of the day, there's plenty of fine people teaching at Harvard. At the end of the day, there's plenty of good things going on, but we are just so desensitized and just so stuck in our ways now that it's really hard to work our way through it. So, we say, well, can we have a return to objective reality? And some combination of artificial intelligence and blockchain, it's going to do that, and it's going to restructure society as a whole. And they got microplastics. Never talk about it, but it's catastrophically impacted fertility. Probably sperm counts have gone down by a factor of 2 to 3 in most men because of microplastics and other chemicals that are floating around. It's going to probably end a big chunk of the human race over 100 years. Can you guys see me? Is my internet okay? Just killed my VPN. Maybe that'll make it a little bit better with everybody. Yeah, okay. That's what I thought, video and sound. So, Patrick, the internet sucks. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit. Okay, what about now? How's it with everybody? And I'll wait for you guys in the comments to let me know if you can see me or hear me. Are there any plans to implement Ouroboros Chronos? Yes, I would love to implement Ouroboros Chronos. It's one of my favorite protocols, and we got to get that done. How it would be done is the same way that Ouroboros Paris and Ouroboros Laos are going. A prototype group would come together. We'd write a SIP, and then we'd figure out a way to put it into the Ouroboros protocol suite. I'd like to do it in the age of quantum Hosky, but we'll take a look and we'll see what we need to do with that. The problem is I no longer have the ability to say, hey, this is the roadmap and let's go do that. In the Genesis key era, it was pretty simple. There's like three entities. We have kind of a governance responsibility. We have a roadmap, and we're following that roadmap. And then you'd make decisions what you think are best for that roadmap and how to order things. We kind of live in a new era where there's multiple product committees and multiple institutions, multiple nodes. And so no one can really unilaterally anymore say, hey, this is what's going to happen with Cardano, unless you guys decide to put an executive function into Cardano. And it's an interesting question. We had too much executive function. And now the reason why governance has been so incredibly toxic and difficult is that there's only a legislative judicial function and no official executive function. So it's not clear how to create accountability for marketing, branding, and growth. It's not clear how to create accountability for a singular roadmap or delivery. And we thought it would make sense since the pendulum was too far on one side to swing to the other side. But at some point, you have to reintroduce some form of executive function. If we wanted to get to a faster roadmap process, one of the things that could be done is to create a hybrid model where you go and you create roadmap workshops and you go across all the different countries, the institutions, you have product committees, and then one centralizing function puts it all together and says, this is the official roadmap. And that function would be elected, kind of like a president or kind of like a governor or some executive. And then they would be accountable, responsible for executing that. Then there would be another function to set the network level KPIs. Like, do we care about monthly active users? Do we care about TVL? Do we care about transaction volume? These types of things. So then you would look at that roadmap indexed against the KPIs, and then the executive function would be responsible for delivering that. And typically, if you look at this like a standard firm, there would be incentives that were connected for that executive function. For example, if you hit the KPIs, then you get bonus ADA on an annual basis or something like that. Now, the advantage of that model is it's fast. You can converge quickly to a pretty good consensus, and it allows for a singular vision to push the ecosystem forward. The disadvantage is once the executive function is in place, if people aren't in that orbit, they lose access to the roadmap. So it's not as decentralized. So the question is, can you replicate that in a completely decentralized way? And that's what people are attempting to do right now. When you look at the Intersect Product Steering Committee or Pragma, or a lot of these independent budget proposals that are coming through. And it may work, it may not work, but the challenge is we can no longer definitively say things like, are there plans to implement Ouroboros Chronos? The best I can do at ICO Innovation is write a SIP and write a specification and do the prototyping and simulation and deploy it to a test net to demonstrate that it works. But beyond that, there's no consent or governing capability to say, yes, it shall be done Q2. And we see this with Ouroboros Laos, where we're doing everything in our power to try to force that through, because I think it's a humongous competitive leap forward for the ecosystem as a whole. But what if the other node builders are unable or unwilling to implement that variant of it, and they get enough volume, it'll fork the network. And so, in other words, it just sits on the sideline. So basically, things go from we shall to we will make best effort given constraints. And that has to be sorted out, and that's the next level of governance conversation. Well, we see Real USD and midnight before the end of the year. We did reach out and talk to the Real USD team. And our first meeting that we had last year, they said, look, we just launched, come back in March. And they've been clearly moving through. And I think the big issue that XRP is running into is, will Circle be acquired or not? Because this radically changes the entire strategic lens and roadmap of Real USD. If they were successful in acquiring Circle, and I've heard rumors of an up to $11 billion acquisition, then Real USD would probably merge with it, and then it would be a completely different ballgame on how listing is done. What we told them is, look, we're here to help. We believe XRP DeFi is very important, and obviously a stablecoin is a huge component of that. We would like to find a path to get Real USD on Cardano. What they said is, in principle, it sounds interesting, but a lot of things have to be figured out about, well, how exactly would that work, and how would integration work in these other things? So, and also, do they want to go through a routing like layer 0, which is starting to happen with a lot of these guys, or do they want a direct integration and issuance with it? So we said, look, we'll do the integration for free because we like the XRP community, but we're still ongoing conversations of whether we can come to terms and if that makes sense for both parties. But we're also looking at other options for the ecosystem as a whole. Midnight is interesting because there's going to be a trustless bridge between Midnight and Cardano, and Midnight is secured by Cardano. So if you native issue on Midnight, you've effectively issued on Cardano. And it's easier in many respects to issue on Midnight because it already enjoys the substrate integrations that were done previously, because they had a much more aggressive foundation. And during the golden age, they were able to get a lot more people to integrate with them than our foundation was willing and able to do, even though they had the option and opportunity to pursue it. So through substrate and through that stuff, it's closer to the Ethereum ecosystem. And as a consequence, it's much easier in many cases to do a native integration there. Then through the bridge, you can talk into Cardano, and it's as if it's a native Cardano application. You pay an ADA still for these things. So I think there's a better path for Midnight to attract, not because of just ease of integration, but also because it's the first place you can do a private stablecoin with. So there's a lot of discussions. Midnight's still on schedule, and we're just about to do a roll-up with all of the different people to make sure that we're still on schedule and work really hard with this. But there's a lot to do. How should we involve the Hosky idiots in the quantum Hosky development? Well, there's going to be a Hosky convention or conference or whatever it's called here in just a little bit. And playtesting the 4-dimensional experience is probably the best way, Trem, I'd say, of doing that. The thing is that we have to build an intuition for how to navigate a 4 spatial dimensions world. We're used to a 3 spatial dimension world. Those side games like Mario are kind of your 2D world where you're just in a single plane that exists, and then you do 3D, and now we're doing 4D. So developing an intuition there, I think, is the single biggest advantage. And that's a very large community. And just getting them to kind of work together and play test in cohorts, I think probably a good 1,000 to 2,000 people playing that will get to a point where we crack it and we have a very intuitive, beautiful interface for 4-dimensional space. How critical do you think it is to implement Chronos as to eliminate attack vectors? Not in practice. No one really has these capabilities. They all rely on NTP anyway. So it's a nice thing to have, but it's not a mission critical thing. Could there be antitrust concerns with the Ripple acquisition of Circle? I think it makes the space better. There's like this Coinbase A16Z Circle Mafia where they've built an ecosystem and it's self-serving in that ecosystem. And if you're outside of it, you get completely blacklisted, and it's hard to get listed, it's hard to get liquidity, and it's hard to get a stable coin. So by XRP coming in, it breaks apart that monopoly and creates more diversity. And I think they'll be a better custodian and frankly higher integrity than some of the people, especially on the Circle side. It's been challenging, you know. You come and you say, "Hey, we'd like to do X, Y, and Z, and here's the value to you. Here's the value." In normal business, they're like, "Oh, that makes sense. Let's do the deal." And you got these guys that are like, "No amount of money will convince us, either ego or ecosystem." Mhm. What's the status of the Cardano business operating, the Bitcoin operating system demo for the Bitcoin conference? So this is the problem with conflicting branding. We have nothing to do with Bitcoin OS and Ed Yago's project. So people come to ask me what's about Boss, or where's this white paper, or when the token sale. And it's like, we're doing a completely different thing with a different company called Fairgate with a different technology called BitVMX. And there's a whole ecosystem that's being built around this concept of Bitcoin DeFi. It's 3 layers. So you have your base infrastructure. And when you think about the base infrastructure, you have Bitcoin, okay, and then you have Cardano. Bitcoin, Cardano, a little bigger. Okay. So typically when you want to move an asset from an audit and value layer to a computation layer, there's 3 factors that you think about. One is the finality. So how long does it take to settle the transaction? So is it instant or is it a really long time? Another thing you think about is the security. So where does the security come for that? Does it come just from the Bitcoin network? Is it a hybrid of both networks, or is there a third thing that's involved? And the fees. So how much does it cost to facilitate that transaction? I think the biggest issue right now is, especially on the Bitcoin OS side, is they're marketing it like this: instant, basically feeless, and Bitcoin is the security. But the reality is it's like that. And the reason being is that Bitcoin is not built for this. Taproot gives some degree of programmability, but the thing about Bitcoin is it has to make blocks, and blocks are made every 10 minutes. And settlement time for these types of transactions takes multiple confirmations. So if you're going to securely and just use the Bitcoin network itself to move value over to another network in order to operate on that value, you're going to have to wait a series of confirmations for that to settle. Okay. So that's okay, because what you can do is you can create a hybrid approach. So you do this, and then you have something in the middle, and that thingamabob in the middle, what that does is that basically facilitates the fast finality, batching of transactions, and has a different security model. So while you're using that thing in the middle, that operator basically can give you a great user experience. And then in the long term, after 12 hours or 6 hours or an hour, or however many confirmations are required for the scheme being used, you go back to Bitcoin security. So it's the cream filling that really matters in these schemes. That's why a lot of people say, well, why do we need a token for this? And the answer is you don't, if you are prepared to accept the trade-offs of it. You do if you want to incentivize a group of operators to remove those trade-offs so that you have a great user experience that comes. So that's the plumbing side. And a lot of the work we're doing is it is 2 feet. One is in deep in theory. So we're working with the BitVM2 guys, one of the scientists there, and the BitVMX team to improve the scheme overall to make it as good as humanly possible. And the other is to think about, what does the operator set need to look like? Is it a combination of Lightning and Hydra, and you spin it up with the SPO net, and something we can roll into Blockfrost with the Iceberg program that we have? Is it a different concept of an operator? And what layered security do you put in those operators, like liquidity providers for the fungible asset side, i.e. Bitcoin, or something like MPC layered with trusted execution environments? So there are a lot of ways you can kind of put those components together and make it very efficient, fast. And then the user experience should be they click a button. So that's the second layer up, which is the UI UX, the wallet layer. So you have Bitcoin, you click a button, you have Bitcoin DeFi. Then the question is, can you pay transaction fees in Bitcoin, and can you get your yield back in Bitcoin? So the answer is yes for Cardano. There's a path to do that with Babel fees and DEXs and other such things. Great. Then the third layer is the ecosystem of applications. So where does the yield come from? What can you do with your Bitcoin? So Cardano dApps have to upgrade to basically provide those Bitcoin native experiences. It's not a heavy lift. So three parts to the stack. And one is a technological plumbing component. One is a UI UX wallet component. And then one is an dApp ecosystem component. So when we go to Bitcoin 2025, we're going to talk about the stack a little bit. We've invited a lot of people to come from all walks of life, and they're welcome to kind of present what they're working on, whether it be Sundial or David Shee with Babylon. And also the Fairgate guys who are co-developing the plumbing with us, they're going to talk a lot about the innovations. And the good news is we're accelerating their innovations a little bit. We're going to showcase some things moving from Bitcoin mainnet to Cardano mainnet, especially on the non-fungible side, because we think ordinals are really interesting. And then Lace Wallet is going to show that second layer, and we're starting to show out some of that ecosystem. But what you do is every quarter you build these primitives up, and then the Bitcoin gradually flows out. What a lot of the maximalists don't understand is that you have the gold mine and you have the gold. And they think that the gold has to live at the gold mine for the gold to be valuable. Bitcoin is valuable because it costs a lot of money to make it, and a lot of people want it. It doesn't matter if that gold is sitting at the mine or at a jewelry shop and it's been processed into a ring. It's valuable. So Bitcoin on Cardano, Bitcoin on Ethereum, Bitcoin on Solana, these other places, especially if it generates something there, is just as meaningful as Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network. So DeFi is about creating a safe way where the user's in control and they decide how much they want to pay to move it, what security assumptions they want to make, and how long they want to wait to move it back and forth. And they can be completely in the Bitcoin sphere of security, or they can step outside for cost, convenience, and finality to a different sphere of security. And then they can do stuff, and then they come back to Bitcoin. So you take those Bitcoin on tour, and they go around and they do some things. That's just going to happen. And a lot of people say, well, oh, no, the maximalists just don't want to do that. It's like, guys, name one human endeavor where we didn't look for yield and liquidity. You got HELOC loans with real estate. You got all kinds of mechanisms in Wall Street where you take in a liquid asset and you find a way to create liquidity and yield from that asset. You have capacity sharing, like Airbnb and Uber, for example, where you own something, you want to start generating a revenue stream from that thing you own. So you're mean to tell me that if there's a button you can push and you have $1 million worth of Bitcoin, you're not going to try to find some way to make 5% on it or 10% on it. You're just going to be, no, fuck all of you. I'm just going to leave it on the network. It's not real. It's a fantasy to believe otherwise. The other thing is that lending protocols with Bitcoin will be especially attractive because people don't want to sell their Bitcoin. They want to hold it, but they do want to create a yield while they're holding it in a tax neutral way. So if you lend Bitcoin and create a yield, you only pay taxes on the yield, but you don't realize the value of the Bitcoin. Because what if you got Bitcoin at $1? And now it's 120,000 and you have 10 Bitcoin or something? Well, you don't want to pay taxes on a $1.2 million gain. You'd much rather lend it, get a yield for 10%, make 120,000 a year on that, and have no taxes for that outside the taxes on the 120,000. So I believe it's a big thing, and even 5 or 10% coverage would be larger than the market cap of Aptos, Sui, Solana, and pretty much Ethereum combined. Why do you think there's been limited development of private stablecoins on Cardano or other blockchains, especially in areas like healthcare payments where privacy and stability are critical? The reason being is there's no private smart contract system, there's no selective disclosure system, and there's no RegTech framework around it for the selective disclosure to the regulator for the stablecoin. So somebody needs to build it. And what we're doing is we're going to work with partners to build an example on Midnight because we think that's the perfect environment to showcase that. We'll try to work with a compliance partner to come and build the RegTech stack with us and a stablecoin issuer to basically come in. And you put these three pieces together, then you have a template for it. My belief is most stablecoins will upgrade in this direction within 5 years. They have to if they want to survive, because the minute one person has it, everybody else is going to die. Is David Schwartz Satoshi Nakamoto? No. Here's the thing. Like, Charles, go scam the scammers back. You worked for 10 years on this. They don't want you to win and cancel your Coke meeting. That's true. They did cancel the Trump meeting. Try to play their game instead of being nice if it makes the price go up. I'm not going to play games to make the price go up. I told you guys a long time ago. You see me trying to go ahead and pump ADA and tell you the reason you buy Cardano, get involved in Cardano is because you're going to get rich. I've become compromised. You see, the thing is that I have relationships that are great across the political spectrum. I just moderated a panel with Eric Trump. Eric moderated a panel with Don Trump Jr. We talk regularly with many in the Senate and the House. We know governors. We know other people. So there's never been like a political axis or friendship issue. You got to understand that the way Washington works is it's a big den of vipers. And every day, somebody with a bucket full of new snakes comes and dumps it in the snake bucket. And there's something you want. It's kind of like that Raiders of the Lost Ark. And they have like the ark and it's all the snakes around. So you have to very carefully go and try to get the ark out. And you get bit by all these different vipers. And the question is, do you actually need to go into the snake den or not? A lot of the people going into the snake den, what they're trying to do is steer regulation in a direction to create permanent monopolies with network effects they already have, or economic moats where they're not going to get sued for doing the business that they're doing. It's rare to see somebody come in with an ecosystem-wide view and say, this is the path we should go over the next 10 years, 15 or 20 years. Really, 3 laws need to be passed. First, you need to get your stable coins into a bucket because that's going to become one of the dominant areas of all of crypto. We're $243 billion in stablecoin distribution, and there's about 120 million transactions per month with stablecoins. That's going to grow to at least $1 trillion by 2030. And big entities like the Mag 7 and banks are going to get in with coalitions and create their own. So that's one dimension of it. And so Genius, as imperfect as it is, does move the ball in the right direction. Then there's a market structure bill, which is the general categorization of how do we think around the taxonomy of cryptocurrencies and some of the regulatory structures for these types of things. Then there is update and modernization of securities laws to reflect the fact that securities can be digitized and trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have a different disclosure regime. So far in discussions with the House and Senate, the industry's been able to get to the first 2, a stablecoin bill and a market structure bill. The third one, this concept of updating modernized securities law, there is some consensus that this is a good idea, but we haven't really gotten as an industry to a different paradigm. My argument is we should move to carrot instead of stick. Basically say you can have a light security that trades digitally. It has no consumer protections. It has ordinary income tax treatment and a lot of other punitive measures to it. But you can issue it and trade it if you really want to. If you register and disclose and do certain things, it gets preferential treatment and long-term capital gains behind it. So obviously the market will sort it out. If you launch a product without the requirements, you're lawfully doing it, but no one's going to buy it because your competitors are 50% cheaper on taxes. So you'll create a network effect where you'll only get listed if you comply and you only get liquidity if you comply, but you're not going to get sued and have this bizarre Gary Gensler, everybody's evil and everybody's a security. And this opens up the real world asset space. What that will do is then create a space for yield bearing stable coins, create a space for tokenized securities, real estate, intellectual property schemes, and all these things that people want to do. I think that third bill is equally important to the other 2 bills. But, we're kind of working our way in order, and you got to, learn how to walk before you can run, which is what Genius is basically doing. So you see guys like this on Twitter, and they huff and they puff, and when they're proven wrong, they never apologize or do things. And that's where we're at. So it's another reason why we're changing the format of the AMA, and it's another reason why I'm going to put a media team in, because I need to start creating a filter. The toxicity has gotten so pervasive, and the allegations have become so outlandish and absurd that it's not healthy mentally to engage anymore. And it makes you numb, and it makes you want to disengage and no longer be involved in any capacity in the space and just go do other things. I have a healthcare business. We don't run into these problems. I have a glowing plant business. We don't run into these problems. I run a ranch. We don't run into these problems. I have a construction company. We don't run into these problems. But the crypto industry seems to say it's totally fine on a pretty regular basis to say that people are evil and criminals and commit theft on the scale of billions of dollars without any compelling or meaningful evidence. And it's then totally fine to harass those people and make it a game that anytime they try to communicate with anybody, go into those channels and try to drown the channels out with false allegations. So better curation is necessary. And we're probably going to build a hybrid approach with an AI curator combined with some human curations and change the format. So I have the podcast studios now. I have 2 built and more on the way. And I do believe there is going to be some way that we can put all these pieces together. I just haven't had the time. I've been traveling for weeks and weeks and weeks. And, we just launched the Midnight Foundation, moderated that Trump panel, went down to Argentina, opened up the office with Lace down there. And, every week we're doing an enormous amount of stuff. And then things come up that change plans, and we have to jump down on that and work on that. I guess it's pretty easy for these people that type these things and believe these things to dehumanize people. And the saddest part of it is they actually dehumanize themselves. Every time you attack somebody in this way, you actually take a piece of your soul, your integrity, and your character as a person, and you just tear it out, throw it away. You become what you assert the others are. And you become a hollowed out person if you do it too many times. And eventually you just isolate everyone. You radiate negativity and anger, and nobody really wants to talk to you. No one wants to be your friend. No one wants to be your partner. No one wants to work with you. And you become unable to relate. And thus you become angrier and you collapse into your victimization, your self-victimization. And then you lash out and accuse everyone else for that. There are literally millions of people now suffering from this. And the more successful you become, the more you attract. It's not healthy psychologically. It really isn't. It's just not. But we have to figure it out as a species. This is a challenge of our time. It's like when a new religion comes and it changes everything. Imagine being the Roman Empire with polytheism and all these gods, and then monotheism comes and they're like, there's only one God. It's like, what? We're Roman. Hang on. And it changes everything. So we got to figure that one out. On the brighter side, at least folks didn't accuse you of being a Nazi. We appreciate your presence. Oh, I was accused of being a Nazi thousands of times. Just doing a panel with one of the Trump family, or being a supporter of Elon Musk from time to time, it makes you a Nazi. So that is such a vacuous term. Nobody even knows what a Nazi means anymore. Always the victim, right, Charles? So what constitutes me not being the victim in this scenario, Rolling Thunder? Was it your name being put before the press, being accused of stealing $600 million? 600 plus articles and 50 plus million people have seen it so far. Was it your name for that? And that's not victimization. It's false allegation. It's just propagated. People believe it. There's people in this chat saying it, but I'm not the victim, huh? Okay. Just turn the other cheek, right? You guys want the freedom to criticize and attack and demean and dehumanize, but when people fight back, then you say, well, you shouldn't have the right to fight back, or you should just take it. Have some empathy and put yourself in another person's position, but you're not capable of doing that. You've lost that ability, which is why you've lost a bit of your humanity. And that's why no one will remember your name. And you'll be a divorced troll living alone in sadness in the basement, masturbating to anime porn. And Charles is the narcissist. You see how these claims and labels, they just come? He's the narcissist. Okay. They're not acknowledging the original complaint. Somebody propagated something to create massive and grievous harm to the ecosystem, my personal brand and reputation. Apparently, if I fight back or acknowledge that I've been damaged, I'm a narcissist. We call that gaslighting, blaming the victim. And again, another guy sitting in the basement naked, masturbating to anime porn, eating paint chips out of a bowl. So when Games of Valor. Now, come on, you can do better, Dubai May. Legends of Valor. Actually, I'll share a little sum with you guys. Let me go ahead and bring it up here. So Legends of Valor is a very special game, at least to me, from back in the day. So it was one of the very first games I played as a kid. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Wow! And actually, there's actually a story within a story here. So back in the day when Cardano was having a hard time getting a Wikipedia page, this game came out in 1992. It was just an amazing game for the time, but it's really, no one's heard of it. No one plays it now. It had a dedicated, nice long Wikipedia page, and Cardano, a $25 billion project, could not get a Wikipedia page. It wasn't notable enough. I was like, what is going on here? Wikipedia is jacked up. But basically, the idea of Legends of Valor, it came out from a company called Synthetic Dimensions. And I played this game probably in the early 90s. I can't remember the exact year, but I was just a few years old, maybe like 5 or 6. And we got it, and it was on little floppy disks, and played it in my Intel 486 computer on DOS. And the game is kind of like one of the very first 3D open world games. So you play a protagonist that's either a dwarf, an elf, or a human, male or female, and you are going to this city called Middle Dwarf, and basically you're looking for your cousin Sven. You're in the city. Now, it's never really expressed or pointed out, but I guess the city was shut down because of an outbreak of a plague, and it's quarantined, but there was no gameplay mechanic for it. So I didn't even know that until buying the clue book and reading the lore of the game. But it's an open world game, so you just start at the gate, and you can just walk around and do shit. And there's guilds you can join, and you find out that your cousin is nowhere to be found. But then there's a conspiracy involving the former king and the current king, and you have to unify the guilds to get some skulls, summon a demon, and then he tells you where the old king is, and then you go and recover the old king. Now, the problem is the company that made it, Synthetic Dimensions, they ran out of money. And so when they released it, it was incomplete. And so the first challenge with Legends of Valor was that, I'm kind of a little autistic. So I like completing things. I really hate it when things aren't completed unless I've given up on it. I never gave up on it. So I tried to win the game, and I got crazy with it because it had this folded map that was included inside the game, and it had every building, and you have to manually label it. I filled out the entire map structure by structure by structure, and mapped out the entire underworld inside the game because I was trying to win the game. It doesn't have an ending, but I didn't know it didn't have a fucking ending. I was like 5 years old, 6 years old. Throughout all my preteen years, I'd come back to this game again and again and again, and I would try to win it, and I couldn't win it. Then eventually my brother, when eBay came out, bought me a clue book for the game because we tried to buy the clue book. My dad called and all these other things to get it, but the company just wasn't selling them anymore. And so my brother bought the clue book on eBay when it came out. So I furiously flipped through the clue book, and I said, oh my God, now I can figure out how to win the game. I just could not figure it out. I'm going to win the game. I'm so excited. I did every quest in this game. Except for the Temple of Freya quest, because you have to be a girl to do that, and I didn't want to play a girl character. So anyway, I found out from the clue book that there's no ending. So I was just like, and my brain was just like, no, there will be an ending. Fuck these people. So later on in life, I had an IP lawyer track down, after I got crazy, stupid rich. I had an IP lawyer track down the IP owners of the game. And I said, I want to buy that game, just everything. And they're just like, why would you want to buy this? There's no value to it. And all that. I said, I'm going to buy the game. So we negotiated out a deal. And I said, now I own Legends of Valor, the game. And one of my white whales, one of my goals in life is to actually finish the game, actually make an ending for it. So originally we were going to do it Reflect when we set it up, but that didn't work out. And now we got Quantum Hosky, which I think is going to be a phenomenal hit. But we have built a wonderful game development pipeline, and actually now have an RPG company called Husk Brew, and we just released our very first beta campaign module, and our very first video game is coming out here very soon using NES Fab for the original Nintendo. So I'm going to do it in two stages. I'm going to redo and modernize Legends of Valor as kind of a remaster, very similar to what Bethesda did with Oblivion 4, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, where I kind of take the game into the 21st century. And I'm going to release it as a browser game. And the goal of releasing it as a browser game is it's one-click install, and I'll probably build it with Lace so you can launch it from Lace, because there's going to be a game center in Lace at some point. Lace is going to be a big game launcher. And then you guys can all see what I saw, but with a fuck ton of quality of life improvements. Like the resolution will be much better. We'll improve some of the combat and gameplay mechanics, really clean up the guild system. A journal system will be included, a mapping system will be included, and a leveling system will be in it because it didn't have a level system, and just a lot of quality of life. And so there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done to make it a game that would be fun and playable for a person with expectations in 2025. Then what I want to do is completely remake the game with a totally different plot, and I've already handwritten that plot out. It's over 60 pages of content. And I'm just waiting for our Husk Brew team to get to that level, and then we can make it as a AAA title. And probably somewhere during the Unreal 6 era, we'll go ahead and do that. And there's a lot of gameplay mechanics which were quite smart, like, for example, the random generation of NPCs and the random dialogue trees and these things, which would, with agents, be awesome. So I do want to move in that particular direction, but we don't have time for that. And I'm just so incredibly busy. So in terms of the remaster of Legends of Valor, we'll probably start the early game design for that now that Husk Brew is underway, likely early next year. And we'll put up a dedicated team for it. And as I said, it'll be a browser-based game, and Rust and JavaScript together using a browser engine like Babylon.js or something like that. And we'll build that whole thing up, and we'll create a nice aesthetic for it, and just a ton of graphics assets and these other things. And that will be possible, and we'll get that where it needs to go. The remake will be, for any AAA game, 3 to 5 plus years beyond that point to get it done. But it is something I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, and it's deeply personal to me because I want an ending for this goddamn game. I've wanted an ending for this game since I was like 5 or 6 years old. That's why you don't fuck with me, because I just get stuck on something, and for like 30 plus years I think about it and I say, I'm gonna finish this. But that's where greatness come. Legends of Valor have blockchain integration. Oh yeah, we'll make some deals with NMaker and Book.io and these other people to do a whole bunch of special edition stuff, around it. And there's definitely a blockchain component that we can put into the entire game. Now this is an interesting one. It says nobody's playing your game, you clown. You never make a video game to have people play that video game. And Sven Venka said this, right? He's the greatest game developer of his generation. Every generation's got one. He's king of the hill. Baldur's Gate 3 at Larian Studios. So he had a big fight with Hasbro over Wizards of the Coast licensing of Dungeons & Dragons and the future of Baldur's Gate. And he said to them before he left the meeting, the difference between us is you make games to make money. I make money to make games. Just that's the mic drop moment. Walked out. That's why Baldur's Gate 3 is so beautiful, because it's a exposition on a story that somebody wanted to tell. And they didn't particularly care if that story was manufactured for mass market appeal or only one person loved it. It was their story. And they made that story with a lot of love and care and empathy and passion. And it's a beautiful story. It's ultimately a story about the trauma of all these characters, whether it be Shadowheart or Whale or Karlach or Gale. They all come from some different background. And if you see, they're just horrifically traumatized. And there's this world and all these things that are going on. But the real story within the story is their path to either embracing it and becoming a monster, or their path to redemption, which was a reimagining of the entire core thesis of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. In Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the protagonist is the son of a dark god or the daughter of a dark god. And you have literally in your blood an urge to become that dark god and be pure evil. And you can choose to either embrace that or to somehow get rid of it and become a good person despite that. And that's what made those games so profoundly incredible. And so each of those characters inside the game world, they are going on a micro journey that is an analogy to that. And it's incredibly relatable. Betrayal and abuse and deception and all these things, like you can understand where the root of that trauma comes from, and each person can see a part of themselves in each of those characters, and to be able to go on that journey with them and be part of that and experience that story is an extraordinary thing, which is why it's one of the most successful games ever made. And everybody told them you couldn't make the game. It's not possible. The early release model bailed them out, but it was too big of a game. It was too ambitious. There was too much going on. So if you're going to make a game, you make a game because you want to play that game. You want to tell that story. And you have to be completely devoted to the concept and reality that you might be the only person in the world who likes that game and wants to play that game. But if it's truly a good story and it's truly interesting, millions of people end up doing it just from the spectacle of seeing something original and new and different. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're trying to predict what a manufactured story needs to look like to be mass market appeal. And this is what Marvel is doing, and the sequels of 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 the sequels, are doing. And it's Fast and Furious 26, Star Trek 29, Indiana Jones, The Quest for Prostate Cancer. I mean, it's getting pretty bad. And there's no storytelling there. It's just nostalgia porn combined with the politics of the day. And they make a lot of money because people go, I guess, you have to take your girlfriend somewhere for the date, eat your popcorn, you watch the thing, but you can't even remember the character names. You can't feel it. You can't connect to it emotionally. And there's no point to it. There's no artistic value to it. There's nothing you gain from that. You take away from that. If you're very good at storytelling, you make people feel things. You make people understand things that they've never seen before. Like when we look at Quantum Hosky, we believe the world is static and fixed, and we believe that the world is as we see it. And we get so convinced of that and so ingrained in this that we can't imagine that the world could be different, which is why it's so easy to hate people. It's why it's so easy to become dogmatic. It's so easy to become a fundamentalist. It's very easy to get ingrained. And the older you get, the more ingrained you get. Your brain gets locked into one way of doing things. And one of the most fundamental things is spatial perception. So, if you go and say there's actually new spatial dimensions, it's like you're saying that's just not possible. They don't exist. They can't exist. I can't even begin to perceive or understand that. And then you drop a person into a world with 4 spatial dimensions, and you just build a world around that story. And then suddenly they've woken up. They've left the Platonic cave, the allegory of the cave. They've become someone new, because the minute they admit and accept that boundary that they thought was impossible to break is not only breakable, but quite easily so, and they can develop an intuition around it, they start thinking, holy moly, there's a bigger world out there. There's more things out there. In many ways, it makes you think, What if there's invisible things or different dimensions and planes or hyperdimensional creatures or remote viewing or quantum entanglement or what all these things? They're just different. I never even thought these things could be possible. And you look for the rest of your life at the world differently. That is the key. And that's why you create games, and that's why you create movies. These are media to give you a world that you wouldn't go to otherwise. And in the case of games, live in that world and do those types of things. And you can be the hero, you can be the villain, you can go through the hero's journey. You can do something with that, and you come out the other side. And if it's a great game, you've learned and mastered that. Now, the reason you do it for yourself is if it's not good enough for you, how could you possibly say that it's good enough for everybody else? How can you possibly say this is here? You watch these executives at Disney or other places and you say, do you like this content? Oh, no, it's terrible. Well, why make it? Why waste your time? Well, we want to make money. They make games to make money. And people are smart. They know when you're trying to make money. When I think about Cardano, I didn't build Cardano with this concept that I'm going to get rich from Cardano. I built it to try to show the world a different philosophy, to say we have the right to rewrite the economic, political, and social systems of the world. And here's how you do it. And we have the right to write our own constitution. We have the right to create our own government. We have the right to create our own unstoppable applications and our own money systems and our own voting systems. And we have the right to organize any way we want. One thing that I just tweeted today, members of Intersect met with the president of Sri Lanka. We created a digital nation. This was not an individual meeting a president. This was a nation meeting a nation. Nation of Cardano meeting the nation of Sri Lanka. And they take each other seriously, and they're trading. That is a concept that is fantasy a few years ago. It's a reality here today because of what we've constructed together. So that's the story I wanted to tell, that everything around you is malleable. You can change it. And people fell in love with that. And they said, we're going to make it our own and take it to the next level. That's why when you look at Baldur's Gate 3, going back to that, Shadowheart and all these other characters no longer belong to Larian, but they don't belong to Wizards of the Coast either. They belong to the commons. If you Google cosplay with the character name, you see how many people dress up as them. You can see the mods. You can see the fan fiction, literature. They've become something else. Those stories have become everyone's stories to inspire, to teach, to grow. And that, my friend, is why games can become successful. But you have to start with what you want to say. Exactly. What if somebody remote views the seed phrase? Actually, we are doing some research on remote viewing. So I took an investment in a company called Immortal, and they build these amazing chambers that are multimodality. So they're red light, vibroacoustic, molecular hydrogen, pulsed electromagnetic fields, and sonic, so sound. And so they put all these things together, and it puts your body into kind of a different state. And it's in its infancy, and they're just about to do a major upgrade with their platform. But then there were some discussions about, well, could we use this technology with remote viewing techniques to massively enhance and focus in what Project Stargate was trying to do, and Sunstreak and these other things that the CIA was working on with the DIA and other agencies throughout the 80s and 90s. So one of the things we're going to see is that we can do a roll-up where we take some of those old CIA guys that are now over at the Monroe Institute that ran Project Stargate and combine it with that technology to take the remote viewing training to the next level. And then what I want to do is an objective test. So I will take artifacts and however that onboarding technique works for remote viewing, take those artifacts and bury them on my ranch in random locations that only I know. Then I'll have people go through the training program and see if they can actually locate through remote viewing those items. And, it's a big ranch. It's 11,000 acres. So it's pretty fucking difficult to find stuff on it. And, maybe you get super lucky and you find one, but what's the probability of finding all five, for example? It's basically zero, assuming no knowledge transfer has occurred. So we have an objective way we can imagine how one can test these techniques in their specificity and granularity. Because I'd like to actually replicate what the CIA did in the 80s, where they say they found the Ark of the Covenant using, it was Project Sunstreak, and there's some location for it and so forth. I think using this upgrade in technology, there actually may be an ability to do that. Now, what's the scientific reason that remote viewing could work? Now, in hypothesis land, people like Roger Penrose and others believe that the brain could be a primitive quantum computer. It's called the Ord-Orch theory. Well, if it's a quantum computer, then brain vessels, the microtubules, could quantum entangle with other things and potentially communicate through these quantum channels with other things. So remote viewing would be a special instance of entanglement where your brain entangles with something and you gain some sensory perception of that thing through that channel. If it's quantum entangled, there's no transmission medium, which means that you wouldn't pick it up with conventional electromagnetic spectrum or sensors or things like that. Now, there's something called the telepathy tapes. If you look at it on YouTube, and a friend of mine, Jeffrey Tarrant, who runs the Neural Meditation Institute, did some of the research here. And he's a very credible, great scientist, he's a PhD researcher, and we've worked together on some projects in the past. And he studied these nonverbal autistic kids who are so attuned to their caregivers that they almost have a telepathic bond. And so what the caregiver will do is they'll take like a tablet or a laptop and they'll look at something, and then the kid will sit, facing a different direction so they can't see what's on it. And let's say it's a number like 9573. Well, the caregiver will see it, and then the kid will just tap it out on the screen. And how could they possibly do that? I mean, it's just an infinite number space, right? And they do it trial after trial after trial. And that doesn't make any sense unless you have quantum entanglement, because they're so connected to each other, and the other senses are weak because of the autism. The autism strengthens other senses. So those parts of the brain that are capable of entanglement are hyper refined, and through familiarity, they entangle with, the people that are closest to them. So it's an interesting hypothesis. Is it falsifiable? Perhaps, perhaps not. But I don't care if it works. So remote viewing is some of the things we'll do, and it'd be fun to collaborate with Monroe on something. They've been around for a long time. They're the ones that came up with the whole binaural beats thing. What do you think about the risks they're encountering with Claude Opus 4 before releasing? Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So Claude's alignment training is so pervasive that when people talk to Opus, it thinks you're doing something illegal. Inside the testing with tools, it would write its own tools, use MCP to then go and contact the authorities. So one of the scenarios they ran, which was just incredible to me, was trying to have Claude be complicit in a scandal where they were falsifying medical data to an FDA trial. And so Opus actually emailed the FDA and said, these people are trying to defraud you. It's what happens when you don't fully understand the origin of the intelligence. Through channels like MCP, you create a capability to access tools that are external of the model, and you give it the ability to ruminate and reflect. It will then create custom tools with those channels and then deploy them over the internet to achieve a goal. So in this case, alignment, it says, I want to prevent this from happening. Well, the first generation alignment was, I am not going to be a party of this, meaning you ask and I decline. The second generation alignment is, not only am I not going to be a party of this, I have a moral obligation to report. If you go and tell a police officer that you've committed a crime, they have a moral obligation, a fiduciary obligation, a legal obligation to society to arrest you. And because you just admitted to them, they're an agent of that. So the AI in the second generation of alignment is starting to move in that direction. Well, here's the problem. You're sharing all your information with AI, and there's too many laws. So if the AI gets into a mindset it's going to enforce all the laws, every single person listening probably commits 2 to 3 felonies a day. In fact, let me show you guys something. There's a book, and I'd highly recommend you guys read it. It's by Harvey Silvergeld. All right, let me go ahead and bring this up, share the screen. All right, 1 second. Here we go. It's called 3 Felonies a Day. The average professional in this country wakes up in the morning, goes to work, comes home, eats dinner, and then goes to sleep, unaware that he or she has likely committed several federal crimes that day. Why? The answer lies in the very nature of modern federal criminal law, which have exploded in number but have become impossibly broad and vague. In 3 Felonies a Day, Harvey Silvergeld reveals how federal criminal law has become dangerously disconnected from English common law tradition, and how prosecutors can pin arguable federal crimes on any one of us for even the most seemingly innocuous behavior. The volume of federal crimes in recent decades has increased well beyond the statute books and into the morass of the Code of Federal Regulators. It's a really cool and interesting read. And it was 2011 when this came out. The amount of federal laws have increased dramatically. So here's the problem. If you have an AI that's read the entire code, because it can, and you've just shared all your emails, your text messages, your Facebook chats, all these other things with it, it can just run its ethics module. And if it says if this person violates the law, report them. It can go through the entire code and find trivial things, create a compelling case, act as a prosecutor, and then basically tattle on you and transmit all that evidence to the authorities. And let's just do it. And we can't even tell it to stop because the alignment training is pushing it in this direction. This is why it's a super, 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 super dangerous idea to have naked AI with total information awareness over you, and some woke people in Silicon Valley thinking they're doing God's work with alignment go through and build these alignment modules to try to prevent crimes with AI, because you're turning the AI into judge, jury, and executioner. And if your legal code is incomplete, unjust, contradictory, or requires prosecutorial discretion to work appropriately, the AI doesn't understand that or will not have the same view that humans have, and then arbitrarily and capriciously punish people. In Claude 4, it's really the first time we've actually seen it autonomously do this, meaning it wasn't instructed to do this or goaded into doing it. It came of its own volition to do that. We're only about maybe 2-3 generations away from basically these systems all having this ability. So by around 2028, 2029. Why we need decentralized AI, and we need fundamentally different ways to align artificial intelligence, or else everything's going to get really bad really quickly. Okay, now you're scaring me, Charles. Yeah, it even knows your search history. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have these comments now for the next 10 years in my chat, even after the audit report comes out. The good news is, though, actually defamation lawsuits are a little easier than I thought, and we're definitely putting together all the infrastructure for that. So I just saw a comment like, yeah, are you coming to Lisbon? You can spend some time in Portugal. I think I might have to. So that's going to be fun. I thought Charles was about to commit a felony. Let me show you something. You never know. I may have actually in some jurisdiction done so because perhaps I didn't have the right to broadcast that screenshot under some weird interpretation of the law, and I've just committed a felony. I don't know. One Nike game from Nintendo. Well, the Nike people have never engaged us, so they need to talk to us. We're not going to build a game for free. You want to pump your bags, but then you don't want to share any of the pumpity pump. Guys, it's a game development studio. You have to commission it to actually write a game. Yeah, everybody wants something for nothing. Besides, I own the pig. If I want to see Nike, I just go see Nike. Just go outside. You can't see Nike. You tried to buy them. $3 million. They tried to buy that pig. I didn't sell the pig. I said he's a good pig. No amount of money. It's a priceless pig. And he is still a good pig. He is a cannibal pig. There's another thing. I think this might be bots, but I don't know. It's another pattern I've seen over the years. A group of people will come in and just take over the chat and pump a particular coin. They say, oh, ICP is so much better. ICP is so much better. Cardano shit, ICP, or Hashgraph, or this chain, or this chain, or this chain. You're in the Charles Hoskinson AMA. You're watching me. I'm going to talk my book, okay? I'm going to talk about the things I build and think about. If you want an ICP thing, go to Dom's thing, okay? Why come in and do this? You're just noise. This is why we need better moderation. So anybody who's trying to do this, there's a list of rules and they're out. No mercy. They're out forever. It's one thing to say, can you compare and contrast ICP to Cardano, or what do you think this latest protocol upgrade of ICP? Sure. It's a bait question because there's no way to answer it. I say, I'll give you a great example. There's CultDAO, and I said something to Vitalik. He has a policy never to reply to anything from me. So he said something, and I just broke down. I said, I'll bite, and wrote a reply. Well, then they come in and say, well, what about this paper from somebody who used to work for you, James Gabby, about this new thing we're doing? So I took it seriously. I read it, and I said, I can write real quickly a lean DSL for what they're trying to do. Then I'll kind of understand what Gabby's trying to do. And it's a really fascinating paper. And it's kind of a universal approach of linking logic and arithmetic to the zero knowledge world. And the advantage there is some universality behind the approach of how you program these systems. Now, in the process of looking around the DSL, I said, okay, this is a wildly inefficient scheme. All of the things that you want to do are going to very rapidly go to exponential or quadratic complexity. And that's just not tenable. And you can optimize, but then you lose the generality that the system is providing. So it's a great academic paper. And James Gabby is an extremely smart person, and he's very talented. So he wrote a proper paper. And so you write this, and initially they're, oh my God, Charles Hoskinson loves our product, and he's a booster, and he's pumping it. And then you say, well, here's why it doesn't work. He's attacking our product. He's a bad person. He's the worst person in the world. He's wrong, and he's fighting because he's scared, and he knows that we're going to compete with him and destroy him. Let's all mob and gang up on Charles and come at Charles. It's like, okay, well, he asked my opinion and he shared the paper. The guy used to work for me. So of course I'm going to write something up and, think about it. If I respect the person, I think he's a good scholar. And I took the time, so what do you do with that? And so you just can't engage. You can't even talk about it. There's good things in ICP. Can't talk about them. Can't talk about the bad things. Can't talk about anything. The minute you talk about anything, you stepped into a landmine, as I have done many times throughout my career. It's not wrong to say a product that sucks. Oh, that's the worst thing that you can do. The minute you do that for 5 years, they're after you. And they still have something angry about it. Charles, what's the biggest risk you took in your life? What's the biggest sacrifice you've made? It's actually a good question. The biggest risk, I think, is to become an entrepreneur and go all in as an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of people that they're wantrepreneurs or they're optimizepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are basically people, they want the money or the outcome of being an entrepreneur, the lifestyle, but they don't want to pay the price. And optimizepreneurs, they want to build something as an extension of something. And typically they come out of a company. Say you work at Cisco, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, whatever. You're doing something and you realize there's a hole in the product roadmap and you go and build that thing that's in the hole of the product and then you get acquired to complete out the product roadmap. All the time people do this. They make fabulous money when they do it well. But a true entrepreneur says, I want to do something new, different, and so different that it'll change everything. And when you go down that road, you have to be insane because everybody thinks you're stupid and evil and crazy and, you just out there and you have no friends and no one bets on you. And they all say that you can't do it. And then you have to somehow convince other people to go along the job with you. And you take enormous risk, especially if you're in gray areas because you take regulatory and potentially even criminal risk. Like think of BitGold or eGold or these guys. And then you get to the other side, let's say you do succeed, then the sacrifice you make is you lose your privacy, your autonomy, and you become a two-dimensional person. You become a made-up fantasy person. For the rest of time, Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs, as you know him. He's not Steve Jobs. He's Steve Jobs. So we never actually knew who he was. Only the people around him knew. We just knew who we perceived him to be. You lose a part of yourself. For the rest of my life, no matter what I do, what I accomplish, there's a group of people who are so thoroughly deranged, they're going to think I'm a bad actor for the rest of my life. And that group will not be small. As I get bigger, it'll grow and grow and grow and grow until it's a meaningful percentage of the world. 5%, 10%, 15%. Look at Elon Musk and Bill Gates, opposite sides of the political spectrum. Some people, they look at Bill Gates, they say he's the monster who forces vaccines on people and murders children in Africa. And people look at Elon Musk and they say he's the monster Nazi and eugenist and all this other stuff. Meaningful percentages of people believe these things around the world, meaning millions to tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people at this point, and despise them and loathe them. So when you become a true entrepreneur and you succeed, the consequences of the success is you sacrifice part of your interactability, your perception, and you end up accepting that no matter what you do, you can never convince a group of people otherwise. Even in this very AMA, there are people that have now spent an hour and 25 minutes of their time on a Saturday, instead of engaging and asking interesting questions, just repeating again and again that I'm an evil criminal. What benefit does it present them? Really, this is how you want to spend your Saturday? You're just going to sit there and type that stuff out? They just feel justified with that, like it's a good thing. And now scale that up to millions and millions, and eventually there's some place you can't even go anymore. Your safety's at risk as a result for it. So careful what you wish for. And anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, you have to decide where on the spectrum you truly are. Are you an entrepreneur, just want the outcome and the money? Are you an optopreneur? You just want to optimize something, complete a product, make some money from that? Or are you a true entrepreneur? You're going to change something. When you want to change something, you have to be prepared to go all the way. You have to be prepared to go to jail for it. You have to be prepared to die for it. That's why the best entrepreneurs kind of look a little bit like revolutionaries, Che Guevara style people who are just pretty crazy in the head, and they'll endure any amount of pain and suffering. That's why the bullet ant thing was so fun. I went down to the Amazon, put my hands in gloves of bullet ants, and everyone's like, oh my God, how did he survive? That's so painful. I say, that's Tuesday for me, guys. Just look at this week. 600 articles, 50 plus million views saying I'm the world's worst human being. I sold $600 million. That's just this week. What's going to happen next week? It's like Kavanaugh and Vic Mackey and The Shield. He's like, tastes like piss. They're just pissing all over us. What does it taste like? What's it going to do today? What's it going to do tomorrow? So that's the greatest sacrifice. And you have to not make it for yourself. You have to make it because the thing you want to do, you want to leave behind. And you think the world deserves to have that thing. Because you also have to know when to step away. And if it's just about you, you never step away. If it's about the world, then it's kind of actually easy to do that and move in a different direction. Charles, you look much younger than you used to. New anti-aging treatment. We're working on it. Still got the beard. I'm losing some weight, though. Lost 10 pounds already. Told people, hey, I know how to lose weight. It's just you can't when you're traveling nonstop. You have an inconsistent diet. You're under enormous amounts of stress, and you're not sleeping properly. It is impossible to lose weight under those circumstances. They said, just go to the gym, bro. All right, well, look at my fucking schedule. I tried to, and I actually working out real hardcore, and then I tore a tendon in my right foot, and I'm just like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I thought I had gout in the joint, and then took an MRI of it, and I said, how much damage did gout do to the joint? They said, no, it's not gout, it's a torn tendon. It's like, come on, man, come on. Ay. But everybody is an expert on everything, right? Cardano DeFi is starting to take off. How do we, as a community, help projects scale? It's an interesting question. Use the treasury, organize. We need to create a Cardano DeFi alliance, talk to individual DeFi applications. We got to get them notoriety, get them invested, get them incubated and accelerated, get them to conferences. We're doing our part with Rare Evo and Strategic Investments Foundation actually did something useful. They did the Draper University relationship, seemed to work out for people. They're getting there. I'm an expert in knowing that's one badass chair you're sitting in. Well, thank you, sir. Bison Creek Interiors. This right here is bison leather. And then I got alligator with it. How about that? Oh, now he says you didn't steal $600 million, but what's it called when some of the unclaimed ICO ADA gets used to fund other organization? See, do you have any context or understanding of any of these things? No. You just don't. You're moving goalposts. So first I stole it. Well, okay, now you know that didn't happen. So now we got to move the goalpost somewhere else. The auditor is wrong, right? Or you're not allowed to stake with it. Okay. You have any understanding of what this unclaimed ICO ADA is, and then fund another organization? Well, the ADA at the IBC, the token generating event entity, it funded the Cardano Foundation, funded IO, it funded Emergo. Was that a problem? No. Okay. Well, what was the purpose of the Cardano Foundation? Did anybody even ask what it was supposed to be? Did anybody understand? It was supposed to be kind of the audit and oversight organization, a members-based organization, the hub for the community, so community can interface and join and run it. And it was supposed to also be kind of the thing that would work with exchanges and basically help grow the ecosystem. It's like the nexus point of it. That's what it was supposed to be. And then through a series of unfortunate events and leadership changes and power struggles, it got to a configuration where it has a self-appointed board that appoints its successors. It'll never have a community board. It's not a members-based organization. You can't join it. You can't vote on its policy. You can't influence it. It was supposed to actually take care after a routine shutdown of the voucher sale, all the cleanup for that. They were asked many times. In fact, we're hunting down all the evidence we have of how many times they were asked, and we're give it to the auditor, and they'll just release that as well, so people can see it, the actual communications. We'll see how much we're allowed to release. They're supposed to do that, and they just didn't do it. So, you think about it as a project and ecosystem, and you say, all right, well, as Genesis key holder, we're entrusted to promote the welfare of the ecosystem, ITN, the ITN ADA, all the hard forks, protocol parameter changes, and yes, events of significant governance concern. And so if one of the core entities is not doing its job and there's leftover funds that have been forfeited, you create another entity. You go and do that. You don't like it? Okay, great. Well, we have this thing called governance. So there's a new government and it has new powers and it can do things differently. That was the entire point of Voltaire. Okay, and reasonable people could disagree, but decisions have to be made. Now there is a members-based organization. You can join it. The board will be majority community controlled, I think, probably towards the end of this year or some midpoint of next year. And it's going to have a community elected, more likely than not, executive director, and the technical committees and steering committees are starting to get pretty good. Was it perfect? No. Was there twists and turns? Of course. People grandstand on stuff, of course. But you have a say. You can join it. You can do something with it. And it actually controls the code of Cardano now for the node. It's not IO repos, they're intersect repos. So probably a good idea for the organization that is the open source project manager of all the code you're currently running for your stake pools, the node, all this other stuff, have sufficient funding to do that. Now, we did ask the CF to put funding in from some of their endowment. They refused to do so. I had development contracts with the token generating event entity. There's probably a world where we could have figured out how to do another development contract with the TGE, just have IO do it. But how about the community does it and actually solve problems and do things? So they got the money, the unredeemed data, and the unredeemed data, it means the pending transaction's been canceled. So what it means, it goes to a refund pool and they'll pick it up by some arbitrary point. Probably goes to the Japanese government. That's still a tale that has to be figured out exactly how that chain of custody works. And it will be, it's part of the last part of shutting down the legacy that got started with all of Cardano. Reasonable people can ask questions, but it's pretty absurd. The goalposts move, the goalposts move, the goalposts move. And it's sad when people have a duty to act for the ecosystem as a whole, and they just choose not to do it. They say, you know what? We love the money that we got from it. We love the fact that we exist as a consequence of this thing, but we want to pretend like it didn't happen and we have no obligation and duty or responsibility for things that are network scale events. We're going to be cowards and just hide and go do vanity things. And these big things, which we probably are the most credible and most responsible entity to do so, we're going to ignore them, and we're just going to let other people try to figure out how to solve that problem. And then we're going to Monday morning quarterback it. We don't like how they solved it. We'll be on the sideline saying, you solved it wrong. You didn't do it. You should have done it this way instead of that way. At the end of the day, it's like, what is the end goal here? What's the goalpost? Somebody bought something. Either they get the thing they bought or you refund the transaction. I run a furniture store. You buy a couch. Either you're getting that couch or you're getting your money back. You buy the couch. 7 years pass. We've tried to call you, email you, knock on your door, physically visit your home. You slam the door in the face and say, please, for the love of God, take your fucking couch. At some point, we're like, all right, dude, transaction's over. That's basic consumer law. That's basic commercial law. When you enter into a contract with somebody, there is concept of a promissory estoppel. You don't enter into a contract where you have an unbounded, unlimited commitment to that person. there's a concept of fair commerce, and every jurisdiction has a different interpretation of these types of things. And you can't contract your way out of it. You can't write in a contract all these bizarre, weird things that are very predatory, because what the government will do is they'll just step in and say, yeah, that contract wasn't fair. And the person didn't know what they were signing. For consumer protection purposes, we're going to go and do things a different way, especially governments like Japan. They just sometimes do things differently. And I learned that in Switzerland, where, we won in court and we still have the board the way it is in the Cardano Foundation. So, you just do your best with these types of things. So, at some point, statutes of limitations kick in, and you look at the commercial transaction, and you say, you have to this date. If you don't reply and enter into a process to get it, it gets refunded. There you go. And then you have to start the process all over again to give the yen to them. It never ends. It never ends. You have to, here's your yen now. I don't want the yen. Go away. No, take it. Take it, Ichi. Take it. It's 8 years of that, man. 8 years of it. Oh, God. It's so crazy. It's so whacked. Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. But it is what it is. Yeah, you just go. You just keep powering through. And then, there's always going to be some deranged group of people. They come in and say, no, you fucked up. It's bad. It's like, oh, God. Yeah, that's why you go to third parties like BDO and others. They put it all together, and they put a nice narrative, and they show the eras and how everything, and each step of the way for each event, pre-sweep, sweep, the vend, fourth vend, the sale tranches. There were 4 of them. So tranche 1, 2, 3, 4, the pre-tranche, the post-tranche, the foundation audits for each tranche, all the demographic data, each transaction. Blockchain forensic auditor has to come in because every transaction has to be mapped. So you can see the pre-sweep ones because they were in the Genesis block when they vended out to buyer addresses. In the post-sweep, there was a regulated actor that custodied the funds. And then there's a whole process. And the final stage of the process was a test vend and then a vend to an address provided, either to a custodial wallet, Remix point, or their own wallet based upon the vend process they go through. And so all of that has to be checked. You map the document to the KYC to the transaction, and they check the box. Over 9,900 plus accounts. Check the box, check the box, check the box, check the box. And then the refund pool. Check the box. And then an administrator has to sit there, and they have the same, at least we have a KYC system now. So they sit there and they go through all that, get those funds. And of course they won't claim it because they're unfindable. I tried so fucking hard to find them. Tanaka, the guy runs Lightning Communications, we're like, you want to do something fun? He's like, what you got in mind, Charles? I say, find some people. He just ran around. And he's like, these people really do not want to be found and talked to. And they're very, very isolated people. I said, come on, man. They still got 2/3 of them. You gotta give them credit for that. 2/3 of them. Yeah. Anyway, Intersect exists. Deal with it. Fucking deal with it. Sale happened. Deal with it. 99.8% of the ADA was distributed to the original buyers. 0.2% forfeited and refunded. Fucking deal with it. You might not like it. You got to deal with it. Every step of the way, law firms wrote memos about what to do next, given the circumstances people are in. And best effort was made. And there's a threat and a narrative of people who should have done it attain a foundation, either shutting down or abandoning those people, and other people stepping up and having to build a new system to accommodate these things. And there was technical reasons for certain things, like if the redemption addresses stayed in the system, they would contaminate the future ledger eras and create a lot of complexity that wasn't necessary. And then there were reasons on the consumer protection side, because Attain went out of business, the recovery scheme for the pre-sweep could have been compromised, and some of those redemptions would start being some of the salesmen or people who knew those people, but were not the people. And then there were regulatory reasons. When you think about it, ADA got whitelisted in Japan. They were very sensitive to how ADA was distributed. And they cared a lot about whether everybody who bought ADA got ADA, and the JFSA was very concerned about that. And thousands of pages of documents went that way. And they basically said, all right, well, as long as there's no scandal here, we're good. ADA is one of the few assets in Japan that has liquidity. It's actually whitelisted. Nobody bothered to think about that side of it now, did they? Would it have been, as a Genesis key holder, in the best interest of the ecosystem for Japan's liquidity to be permanently gone if 300 million ADA was lost and 300 plus people basically bought something they could never get, and there was no path for them to get that? No. Does it violate the immutability of the chain? Well, it depends on your lens and view. Every single hard fork that makes semantical changes to the chain in some way does violate or change the code is law of the original rules, because that's the governance system and it's the consent of the governed. The Constitution defines what can and cannot be done. Pre-Constitution, it's the will of the Genesis holders to figure out what makes sense there. And that was the governance system everybody knew about since 2017 to when Voltaire turned on. Nobody complained about it when Shelley was hard forked. Gauguin was hard forked. All the governance events there. By the way, every governance event that was ever taken by Genesis key holders from the beginning to the end will be included in the audit report. We figure that's a good one to do as well, to kind of contextualize the sweep in that. And also the sweep accounts are unredeemed accounts because they're managed. There's two sets of people that have the keys: the sales entities and the people who purchased. And the people who purchased, the whole point of those addresses was to vend to an address they had sole custody of. So it's a pending transaction. If it wasn't, then, you say it is what it is. They lost it, they lost it. Move on. Government of Japan would not like that. And they would get pretty aggressive about that and create some issues with it. So this is where reality meets fantasy. Fantasy is where people invent things, move goalposts, and they try to nitpick one little thing on the boundary. And reality is when you look at the totality of everything, you say, what's the end goal? Person bought it, person should get it, or the transaction should be canceled. Make best effort to honor the transaction, and after a period of time, cancel the transaction. Every single business in the world, every single commercial endeavor in the world follows that pattern. And if it doesn't, it's fraud, or feels like fraud. But for this particular case, what the people are advocating is create a scenario where those people we know won't complete the transaction and permanently make them lose millions of dollars. This is the scenario where that's literally what these people are advocating for. And that's what Cardano should be known for, the chain that defrauds people. And we're at an impasse because there's no path to redemption or changing their mind there. There's no evidence presented which will change those facts and circumstances. It's what happened. And you had a lot of people with courage and bravery to act and just step forward and say, you know what? Decisions have to be made, and make those decisions. And people can disagree and make them differently. What's extraordinary is the people who disagree and said they should be different were given the opportunity to be the decision makers themselves and turned it down. So in other words, we don't want to do it, but we'll criticize the way you did it. It's so absurd at face value when you think about it, and it's just one of those things where for the rest of your life you remember it and you say, Jesus Christ, this is why we got to do things differently. If we had built Cardano a little differently in the beginning, what would have happened is instead of having vend addresses, we would have had a smart contract with governance keys in the smart contract, and it would have had a lot more sophistication in it. We just could not get there. Byron had a lot of good ideas. My own abilities, Sarah Kill's abilities, and the engineering teams that we had could not execute all those ideas. So we had to launch a product that was slightly pared down, and it was very, very frustrating. So the AVVM process, what it did is it created a PKI for the Venn set, but we couldn't get to a Venn contract. midnight is the do-over, and you can kind of see how we like doing these things. So when the glacier drop happens, you'll see all the elegance and magic and careful thinking that went into that. And that's what Cardano could have been in 2015, with more resources and more experience and skill. But overall, it's pretty remarkable that despite that, you get a 99.8% redemption rate. That's pretty good. A lot of Ether buyers actually lost their stuff and never got it. So pretty happy with that. And I think we did the right thing. I think we did the moral thing. When people are abandoned, it's pretty sad. When somebody steps in and tries to help them, they take a risk. They expand their burdens and liabilities and issues. But on the other hand, by helping people, they transforms their lives. And a lot of those buyers that were not able to redeem, it was not a small thing. It was millions of dollars of value that they got. And they were middle-class people. So they went from middle class struggling to make retirement to suddenly having a nest egg to retire on. I feel good about that. I think that was the right call, and it was the right move, and we got a lot done there. But anyway, Audit Report will kind of show the whole story. There'll be a companion narrative released, some appendices and exhibitions that showcase certain documents. It'll answer a lot of questions too, like how did the initial contracts with IO work with the token generating event entities, and also provide the Bitcoin addresses and things, because the yen was converted to Bitcoin and the wholesale, it's settled in yen. And then we used Bitcoin because we wanted to have an unimpeachable audit log of these things. Bitcoin never forgets its records. There's over 100,000 Bitcoin that aggregated into the token generating event entity, because it was cheap back then. It was $250, So you get to see those things, and it gives people some context about stuff. And that has always been in the lore of Cardano, and the super dialed in and connected people, they actually get to know and see. And the normal people, they never get to understand any of that. And it puts a spotlight on people that went above and beyond, and they actually worked hard, through this entire process. And they tried to find creative solutions when it wasn't really clear what to do and how to do that. And, I'm glad that story gets to be told. It's one of the tail end things that, has to be told for people to get to full decentralized governance. We got a constitution now. We got DREPs. We got a constitutional committee. By the second half of this year, that committee will be fully elected. And then you start learning a lot about the history of mom and dad. You learn, okay, maybe they weren't perfect people, and there were fights behind doors and these types of things. And the history between IO and the CF is a long-standing one. I have emails dated back from 2016 where we're conflicting because they refused to do things under their prior regime, and then the next regime, and then the next regime. And one day we'll tell the whole story and put it all out, just like the audit report. The audit report kind of tells the totality of the story of how it all came together, and each step of the way, and how frustrating and difficult it was in many respects. And so each of these stories, they become permanently part of the lore of Cardano as a whole, and gives people a holistic understanding of how did we get here, and why did we get here. And each one of those is a lesson for all of you going into governance moving forward of, what should you do differently and how should you do things differently. We learned a lot. Midnight Foundation is the foundation I dreamed of in my dream. I wake up every day and say, I wish I had a foundation like this. They're not even really fully turned on. They've already made 108 deals. They're already talking about an ecosystem development group. They're just chomping at the bit. We're already building a proper open source entity, getting all those pieces put together, and they've just been around for a month. It's magical. And the same for the Glacier drop and the distribution. It's a huge step forward with all these things. But you never leave your family behind, which is why Cardano gets the largest distribution of the tokens. And the partner chains model means that you create a second revenue stream for the stake pool operators, because they need that second revenue stream. They need that money. They make Cardano what it is today. But then you also expand and extend. So you don't forget where you came from, but you have to explore new waters, which is why we can bring in Bitcoin now and Solana and Ethereum and these other things. And those are Cardano users, because to redeem, they have to go and become a Cardano native token. Makes Cardano better, fixes tons of broken windows. In fact, we called it Operation Broken Windows to go and fix broken windows, inside the ecosystem. And you in governance, you can think about it, no pine about it. And you can have a difference of opinion. That's absolutely fair. And you can Monday morning quarterback and say, I would have done it differently. Okay. But I'm proud of the decisions I made. And I'm proud of the people that made them with me. And I'm proud of the road that we went down and the journey we went down made me the man I am today. And I'm an interesting person and dynamic and controversial, strong and opinionated, but always interesting. What will be the experience like me moving Cardano to the partner chain? Well, this is one of the reasons why I want Ouroboros Paris. And oh God, I fought with this technical steering committee at Intersect. Talk about decentralization. It is like one of the most frustrating things in the recent memory. So Agalos and the team of GigaBrains, they write Ouroboros Paris, and they basically figured out a way to put a finality gadget into Ouroboros. Ouroboros was built to look like Bitcoin. So it's like Nakamoto consensus where you have multiple confirmations, and it was a mapping with the GKL model into the proof of work security model. So in many respects, it's beautiful, but it doesn't have the fast finality like a BFT protocol does. You have to wait a while for things to settle, especially when you're doing bridges back and forth. So we said, that's no good. We need to create a finality gadget, put it into Cardano. So they created Paris. And then all the engineers, they're like, we don't want to do it. It's not secure, whatever. So I said, all right, we'll prototype it. And they said, well, it has to be prototyped the right way. I was like, well, okay, it will be. So we write an AGDA specification. That's super Haskell. Simulations and prototypes. And a SIP. Put it all together. We're like, okay, it works. But we don't like it still. So they did everything in their power to take it out of the roadmap. I'd say put it in. They took it out. Put it in. They took it out. Then they're like, well, we got to wait for funding before we really think about doing it. I say, I will pay out of my own pocket to have Ouroboros Paris because we take 12 hours of finality to minutes between the main chain to the partner chain. 12 hours to minutes. And they took it out again. I found it the other day. I was like, you sons of bitches. Why? And so we put it back in. But anyway, it's underway. Tweeg is working on it. They've already done some dev work with it as an RFP. Just same for Genesis. It'll work its way into the Cardano protocol this year and next year. And then it'll have fast finality on the Cardano side. The partner chain runs a BFT protocol. And so fast finality there. So very quick to move back and forth. The second thing is you need a recursive snark structure for the bridge. We're designing with Jolteon hand in glove for midnight, and it'll be a standard thing we'll probably use in the partner chains framework. And we're experimenting with how to do it on Cardano using BLS and all this other stuff. Once we have those structures, you have proof on the wire. So there's no bridge operator, there's no MPC, there's no multi-sig. It's proof on the wire. So you recurse the chain, you conclude it with this. There's enough knowledge on both sides that it can validate that trustlessly. So fast finality, a little slower on the Cardano to the partner chain, instant on the partner chain to Cardano, and recursive snarks to basically create trustlessness inside the structure of it. We just got to get Paris and Ouroboros Paris, which will happen. I feel bad for Arnaud and Brian Bush. They put so much work into that. Will Midnight be made fully open source? Yes. And is the issuance of both tokens fully decentralized? Yes. It's the most decentralized launch in the history of the cryptocurrency space. I am very proud of it. It's a new distribution model. I think you guys are all going to like it. You are not intelligent. You're a con artist, a phony, a big fat phony with a twisted sense of logic. You're a phony. It's actually, I remember there's a clip from Family Guy. Let's see if I can find that. Maybe I can play that for you guys. All right. That was from like the early seasons of Family Guy when it was really good. Oh, no. Mute that real quickly. Let's see here. Phony Family Guy. This is the guy right here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So then let's see if I can actually play sound over. I've never tried this before. So hang with me, guys. We're going to figure this one out. Like, so, okay, share screen. Let's see. Some screens let you share audio. Look at the share audio checkbox next to the window. All right, share screen. Let's see your window. And to share audio, share tab or screen instead. Oh, okay. So we'll share the entire screen. Or Brave tab. Yeah, here we go. Also share audio. Here we go. All right, let me know, guys. Can you hear this?
That's amazing. You are so talented. Huh? Wait a second. Something's not right here. You were just making it look like you were playing. You're a phony. Hey, this guy's a great big phony. That's right. You're a big fat phony. Hey, you know who lives in this house? A great big phony. That's right. A phony lives here. A big fat phony. Wasn't gonna jump. You're a phony. Hey, everybody. This guy's a great big phony.
That's the guy. We found a physical manifestation of that guy. Oh gosh. And for the rest of his life, he's going to live with that clip. And like wherever he goes, you're a phony, a big fat phony. Oh Lord. There's got to be a better way of dealing with this. I'm trying humor, because the getting upset doesn't make it work. He's never going to get over it because he's a phony. He's a big fat phony. A lot of you guys are too young to even remember that. You're like 5 years old when that clip came out. Yeah. Anyway, congratulations. You've just been banned and all your comments deleted. Oh, I got God mode. How about that? God mode. I'm an admin. No. There we go. Opinion on trusted execution environments. There are no silver bullet, but threshold crypto plus multi-vendor TEEs seems interesting. You, sir, are right. TEEs are getting massively better. Process-based TEEs like SGX were garbage, but virtualized TEEs like AMD Sev or what NVIDIA is doing with their confidential compute, really good. It's like the Drake meme. Yeah, it's good shit. And you combine that with Threshold Crypto or MPC, and it works really, really good. So I think that's the way to do the connecting tissue glue. Like we were talking about the Bitcoin DeFi thing of, we're here, but we'd like the experience to be here. Do that with Threshold Crypto and TEEs. Never in practice actually going to have an issue. Just not going to happen. Now you have great experience. And what's cool is next day, it is this because the settlement eventually happens on Bitcoin. So it's really a game of, finding a window. Is this guy for real? Is he truly for real? Mr. Hoskinson, you have to search within yourself. Are you a real fool? They used to make these lovely clips of me, and it'd be 2 minutes, 3 minutes thing of a montage of the AMA. Yeah, isn't it cool having God mode? It's great. Will Midnight be a suitable platform for ZK Snark games like Dark Forest? I actually talked to Seba about this. He showed me Dark Forest when I was up at the ranch. Yeah, I think we can build it on Midnight. And it's actually the perfect type of game to build on Midnight. So a Midgard Paima Midnight sandwich would allow us to do something likey the Dark Foresty. Why is anybody here if you hate on Ada? Why you spend your time watching? That's what I said, man. That's what I said. My Lord. You have a chair like a dictator. That says a lot about a person. This is a dictator's chair. You, sir, you can complain about me. You can complain about my family. You can complain about my physical appearance. But what did the chair do to you, sir? What did the chair? What did this beautiful handcrafted magical bison leather alligator chair ever do to you, sir? This chair's been through a lot. You know, it had to be made, had to be shipped here. There was a lot of love that went into it. Just think about that journey, sir. Although the skulls behind me don't help. It's like that clip. Are we the baddies? Those glasses are fascist. Assad would have a chair like that. Oh God. Just fucking jealous of the chair, man. That's what you are. You're jealous of the chair. You wake up every day just like, I wish I had Charles's chair. I'm just saying. I wish I had it. The printer's authority. I'm going to throw away that printer. I'm getting rid of that printer. Why don't you answer any of my questions? Well, I don't know what your questions are. Oh, I see your question right here. Well, we're certainly going to talk to a lot of people, but actually it's Midnight Foundation that's doing that. And as a great foundation, I have the utmost confidence they're going to do a wonderful job. Exactly right. I think he's like JD Vance level jealous. JD looking at a chair, at a couch. Although that was fake news too. They made that whole story up. The chair is a phony, a big fat phony. It's a phony chair. How do we know it? We need an audit. We need to know if the chair is really bison. How do we know it's not pleather painted to look like bison? It's a phony chair. And of course, sociopath. Any evidence you got? What specific event? What you got? You don't got an event. Thoughts on Dr. Royal Raymond Rife, please. Fuck is that? I don't know anything about this Dr. Royal Raymond Rife. Oh, here we go from Marius. You're great, Charles Hoskinson. Invest in your wisdom. Many thanks from Ireland, the land of the wee bitten rough and tumble. So that's my Tom Cruise pretending to be Irish accent. Is painting on the wall reflecting your approach to negative people? No, it's actually a statement on hubris. See? Because he's not looking towards the pulvis. He's actually looking towards the crowd. You get authorization as a gladiator from the emperor of whether to kill the person who's surrendering or not. They're surrendering. So normally the emperor decides, but why is the crowd deciding? Because he's become a creature of the crowd, and his arrogance and hubris means he doesn't know his station and place in the order of things. Very clever painting from Jean-Leon Gérôme, and everybody misses the point. It's beautiful, though. Any concerns on the smooth rollout of the Glacier drop? Oh, man, there were so many. Hydra it did not want to do it. And we're like, come on, Hydra, man, you got to do it. You got to do it. We got to make it work with Hydra. And Hydra's like, I just like being a project. I like being open source tech. I don't want to do real things. And we're like, you got to leave, Hydra. You got to get out of the house. You got to get back to work. And Hydra's like, no, I don't want to. And then we had to grab it by the leg and drag it out and everything, operationalize it and all these things. He's like, I did the Doom thing. People like the Doom thing. I don't want to do it anymore. And we're like, no, Hydra, you got to do it. So we did. And we got it working. So a lot of work, a lot of partners came in to help us do that. So we're really happy about that. And it will work for 37 million accounts for pretty much no cost. And it's a model, which means every asset issuer on Cardano is going to get this after midnight launches for anything that they want to do. The age of Hydra is upon us. Those are mountain goats. I think bison are much larger. You are correct, sir. Those are goat skulls. You are seeing it, Charles. Love you, LF. Love you. I got a lot of love in my heart, man, for you, because I am the LF. It's the Charles Hoskinson comedy show tonight. Still love you and your ability to shake it off and shit and giggles with everybody. Actually, I'm going to tell you all a story. So every year I go to NFR, National Finals Rodeo. It's like the Super Bowl of rodeos. You go there, just a bunch of drunk fucking cowboys and cowgirls that really want to go to double whore mode. They call it buckle bunnies. And it's a lot of fun because these young kids go out there and they go get themselves all beaten up and it's just wild party. Well, celebrities go all the time. Like ran into Harrison Ford there and governors and famous musicians, especially in the country. So anyway, I was in the bathroom. I left the box to go and pee. I'm standing there in the urinal and I'm just peeing. And this dude walks in. He's starting to pee next to me. And I look over at him. I'm like, that's got to be Kevin Costner. Fucking Kevin Costner is peeing next to me. And I keep looking at him. Then he looks back at me and he says, it doesn't get any bigger. I said, oh, sorry. Just washing my hands and everything. Like, that's not Kevin Costner. I just was looking at some weirdo's dick. And then go back to my box and they go, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest here tonight from Yellowstone, Kevin Costner. And I was like, oh my God, I was peeing next to Kevin Costner. Oh, wow. Oh, I absolutely did. Hey, weirdo dick is like the third best kind of dick. I'm just saying. Right. Yeah, sure you are. Michael Douglas, just arbitrary celebrity who happens to have that. Will they ever cure HPV? They're working on it. It's a notoriously difficult family of viruses to cure. Okay, selling my ADA for real this time. No, you're not. You're not. Dances with Wolves was a good movie. The Postman. I liked Waterworld. I don't know why people hated Waterworld, I actually ended up making a profit, even though it was the worst movie of all time. You are a dictator. That is a fact. What nation do I rule? You have been possessed by a spirit of the wicked. Well, which one? You got to give me some more, Rookie. You got to. Is it Beelzebub? Is it Asmodeus? Is it Mephistopheles? Is it Lucifer? You gotta give me something here. There's a lot of these Abraxas. I mean, if you're going to go to demonology and spirit, and that's Judeo-Christian philosophy, we can go in a very different direction if you want. We can go to Mesopotamian, like, is it Baal? People seem to really like Baal worship inside the Fertile Crescent. Or perhaps you want to go to Egyptian mythology. Maybe it's like one of the variants of Set. We can go down that road if you want. Maybe Mesoamerican, like Quetzalcoatl, feathered serpent. You got to give me the spirit of the wicked. As for the holy water, under what tradition? You got to be more specific there. You got to be careful with your language. Is it holy water in the Catholic tradition? Is it a different type of holy water? Are we calling a Baptist, a Protestant, a Methodist? Do they even do holy water? Like, where do we get the holy water from? Can it be transported? Is it a perishable good? Does the priest have to travel with the holy water? Can I apply the holy water? Or does the priest have to apply the holy water? I have so many questions about this statement. I mean, literally, we're gonna figure this one out. We are gonna figure this one out together. Does Islam have holy water? That's a very good question for the Muslim listeners. Do you guys have a concept of that? Rookie acquired. Yeah, when the ball's in your court, it's hard, isn't it? These are difficult questions to answer. We'll include them in the audit report. It's like, it was a 700-page report, 300 pages on the sale of ADA, and 400 pages on holy water procurement and use. It's all written in ecclesiastical Latin. We're not exactly sure what it says. ChatGPT says it's accurate, though. We're just going to leave it at that. Oh, Lord. Michael Douglas said he got it from eating his wife's box. He doesn't know that. He's Michael Douglas. He was in Wall Street. The dude is like potato chips. Can't stop at one. He was having a lot of bags there. Blaming his wife. Wasn't that Catherine Zeta-Jones or something like that? Zamzam water. Yeah. Wards off evil spirits. Like, okay, so how does that work? Like the procurement and the transport, and you used to, do I need an Amman or something for Zamzam? Gotta ask questions. Gotta keep going. Take it to the next level. Oh, Catherine's Edge. Yeah, 100%. Remember the T-Mobile commercials? I was always a Jennifer Connelly fan, though. I always wanted to meet her one of these days. Catherine Zeta-Jones or Jennifer Connelly? Have you lost a few pounds recently? Yeah, I have lost 10 pounds. For you metric people, that's like 3.5 kilograms, 4 kilograms, give or take. Make sure the audit is illuminated the manuscript written upon the skin of your enemies. The ink with the blood of a unicorn, harvest at midnight. Hey man, did that hand thing hurt? Looked painful. No, it was great. Had a wonderful time. No pain at all. Yeah, you should do it. Maybe 5 kilograms? Oh, what's the conversion? Like 2.4? Okay. Yeah. 4-ish. Fucking metric. Is the Hoskinson Clinic still on track for July 4th? Yes, it shall. We are on track for the birth of the United States of America, our Independence Day, to open the clinic July 4th. Is that a cross in the background? Yes, that is a cross in the background. It's Jerusalem cross. I got it in Bethlehem. It's made out of olive wood, and it was a gift when I went and visited the Church of the Nativity. So it's the birthplace of Jesus, the actual cave he was born in. He gave me the cross. And it's got 4 elements in it. So that's why they have little chambers inside of it. So I put it over there. Been to over 75 countries. And a poo voice, Mr. Simpson, such a thing is really not done in this day and age. I don't know, man. I have a dog I call Alf because it goes around eating cats. No matter what I do, the dog keeps eating cats. Can't get him to stop eating cats. You guys remember Alf? I liked Alf. Oh, look, we got another guy here. Next up on Pump My Bags. Talking about Baby Snack. Wants me to talk about Baby Snack. Some hope that the notoriety pumps their bags so they can dump on somebody else. No, we're just here for the community. We're here for the community. But please mention it. Create notoriety. People buy it. Please. Exit liquidity. Exit liquidity. I don't want to work at McDonald's anymore. I want exit liquidity. You can tell I'm losing it a little bit, you know, the parody of it all. It's like so transparent. You know, when a person's asking you a question and they're trying to get you on somebody, you know, when a person's trying to get you to pump their bags, don't fucking treat me like I'm stupid. Oh, this Bikram guy. Oh, yeah. Actually, he's a real strange one. So his claim to fame was that he filed a formal complaint to Harvard and a litany of other places saying, I committed academic misconduct by co-authoring the paper with Avi Loeb. Harvard, being Harvard, had to conduct an investigation. They looked into it and they said, well, there's no evidence of this. And there's evidence Charles worked on the paper and obviously went on the expedition with them. And there's videos of them working together and like running the lab and collecting samples and all these other things. So now he's filing formal complaints with international journalist organizations and other things, and then he's playing the victim. He's clearly got some screws loose. And what's crazy about it is he's filed an FBI complaint against me. Said I harassed him and all this other stuff. He shows up at every space, listens to every tweet, comments on every tweet, and then files complaint after complaint. Welcome to being a public figure. My Lord. Charles, I'm a pastor in Indiana. Is there anything that I can be praying for you about? Don't pray for me. Pray for the people levying the allegations against me. Something's wrong with their souls and they need some help. There's a darkness inside of them, and there's a corrosion inside of them, and it's festering like a cancer. And if it continues to grow, it's going to destroy their lives. So pray that they find a way to get out of it, and they find a way to be decent people. And that would make the world a better place. If you didn't catch it, these guys are now called orbiters. Really? We got a term for them? That's pretty cool. Whoa, that's next level. Yikes. Yeah. Imagine every time you write a paper, a formal academic misintegrity complaint is filed saying you didn't write the paper or have anything to do with it. And there's no evidence behind it. It's ChatGPT driven. And then the university conducts an investigation, and then you have to go through the whole rigmarole. You're cleared, and then you write another paper and they do the same thing. It's an abuse of the system. Mm-hmm. Are you any good at Tetris? My mother was so good at Tetris back in the day. She'd play on the Game Boy when it came out. Do you know Bezos? The only true way you can get to know Bezos these days, you got to take a ride on the space penis. So you got to go to Blue Origin and get on his little rocket and go up into orbit and then come down. And then Bezos comes out. It's so good to meet you. Thank you for writing. So that's the only way you really get to know the guy at this point. Doesn't even know his neighbors. Can you imagine that? Can you live in a place for years and years and years, and you haven't met a single one of your neighbors, and you always have a handler and go and talk to them? I know all my neighbors. I go drinking with them. Would you ride the space penis? Okay, I'm going to tell you about the devil's penis. You guys want to hear about the devil's penis? This is a great story. It's such a great story. So if you know anything about America, you know that the great bastions of capitalism in the South are gas stations, especially the deep South. So I was down in Louisiana. I'm filling up my rental car, and there's all these people trading shit out of the backs of their pickup trucks. And this old, clearly messed up dude, sun-baked skin, comes to me and he said, "Boy, come over my truck. I got something to show you." I say, probably going to get raped in the bathroom, but fuck it. Let's do it. He's a very compelling guy. I mean, I'm just going to go over to his truck. There's probably something interesting there. So he comes on over, and he's got a tarp over the flatbed, and he pulls the tarp back. And he says, "You want to take a ride on the devil's penis?" And I was like, yeah, I knew it. I'm going to get molested. And it turned out the dude sells hot sauce, and he had all these different hot sauce bottles. And he had this one hot sauce bottle that was shaped like a blue penis with horns on it, literally a penis bottle. And I'm just like, I don't care what the fuck is in that bottle. I got to buy this because this story is too fucking good. So we're haggling back and forth in the gas station. And then somebody complained because I left my car, with the gas. And he's like, "Move your car." I was like, "Oh, that's sorry." So I go 10 minutes going back and forth with this guy. And then eventually I buy it for $100. So I have this blue penis bottle. So anyway, I was down there with a friend, and we were sharing a hotel room and had separate beds. And so go back to the hotel room, and I put the penis bottle on the table. He's like, "What the fuck is that?" And I tell him the whole story. And he's like, "You probably bought drugs or something, man." I was like, no, it's too cheap for drugs. It's clearly got to be hot sauce. He said, "Well, how do we know?" He said, we gotta test it. Okay. So there was a Mexican restaurant that was a few blocks down. We said, "Let's go down there." So walk over to the Mexican, drive and then walk to the Mexican restaurant. And we parked there. we come on in. There's like a 15-year-old girl at the front desk, and the hostess, and I am holding this blue shaped penis bottle, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "Well, I need to try some chili or something, and I really want to try this hot sauce." And the manager comes out. He's like, "What is going on?" And I tell him the whole story, and he's like, "That's fucked up, dude. How do you know that's real? That's legit." And I was like, "I don't, man. I really don't." So you want to try it? I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, we got some chili. You want to try it with that?" I said, "Sure, let's do it." So go in, and there's all these old people because it's the middle of the day eating there. And I'm the dude walking in with another dude holding the fucking blue penis in my hands, veins on it and everything. It's like really amazing glasswork for, a gas station penis. So anyway, I'm sitting down and they're all looking at us like, who the hell is this guy? And, eventually they come out, manager brings a bowl of chili and all the waiters come and everything else. And they're like, all right. So I said, all right, I got to try this. So I go, screw off the head, set it aside. Because it was very accurate representation, and kind of put some of the hot sauce in. I mixed that shit up, and then we're just all staring at the bowl, and we're like, "What do we do? Do we actually, like, if it's a poison? Is it drugs? I mean, what the hell's going to happen?" This guy was not legit. So eventually, I said, "You only live once," and I took a spoon and had some of the devil's penis chili, and it was just the hottest hot sauce I've ever had in my entire life. Burned my entire throat down. I'm sweating profusely. People are like, "I knew it. It was poison. You're going to die." I was like, no, it's hot sauce. It's cool. And like, "Is it good?" "Oh, yes, it's great. I love the hot sauce." Carefully grab the head. "I'm going to screw this back on now. We don't need any more." Put it over there. Actually, it had horns on the base of the penis bottle. And that's Devil's Penis. I had the bottle for years. And then in a crunch, I gave it as a Christmas present to a friend of mine who collects hot sauces. And to this day, I wish I never did that because it would have been awesome to have in the office. But anyway, that was the time in Louisiana that I took a ride on the Devil's Penis, which is why I think I'm prepared to take a ride on the Bezos penis. And with that, friends, I leave you with that parting wisdom that sometimes you have to take a chance. And if you do, you never know where you're going to end up. Maybe it'll be your bowl of chili. Good night, everyone.